Okay, we are live. So it is my pleasure
Yay.
today to welcome Bree Boucher. Sorry, have I pronounced your surname right? I should have checked beforehand. How terrible of me.
I know, what? How funny is that? I say Boucher, but I'm happy to go a bit fancy with the Boucher.
Well, I assumed it must have been French.
Yeah, I mean that's the idea, but we don't pronounce it Frenchly, if that's even the right way to say it.
Well, welcome, Bree.
Thank you.
Bree does many things, and just to backtrack a bit, she's got her wonderful glasses here, and she also prints those, and you can also order those, which are perfect as we come into the summer months for iced tea or iced coffee. But today, that's not what we're talking about. Today, we're going to talk about something that most people don't know about, and I didn't know about it when I first heard it, but having thought about it, I probably should, and that is an OBM. What is an OBM? So do you want to start off by answering this question?
Yeah, sure. Well, the smart ass answer to that is I'm an OBM. That's what an OBM is. But a more detailed response is kind of like if I guess a lot of people are familiar with like the corporate structure. So if I use that as an example, think about a business owner as like the CEO, the sort of visionary person in that business that has, that insight, all of the ideas and all of the kind of plans that they want to see through. And an OBM is kind of like their general manager or their business manager, the person that sits alongside the CEO and works towards that common goal, and works with the CEO to see their vision come to life, basically. So, if, in terms of the online element, it's basically, the same as a business manager in a corporate environment, but more for an online business owner. So, yeah,
okay,
that's it.
So I've heard the term, and we were laughing before because I got the term wrong, but, I've heard the term, the virtual assistant or the VA, not the voluntary redundancy VR, the VA. Heard that term quite a lot, and that seems to be quite trendy and in a way. But what's the difference then when we're talking about a VA versus an OBM?
Yeah, so VA stands for a virtual assistant, and OBM stands for online business manager. So if you just like unpack that a little bit, we have an assistant or we have a manager. So, the assistant, the VA, gets quite deep into the work and does a lot of task-based duties, whereas the OBM is more kind of at that higher level, perhaps is overseeing VAs for that visionary, for that CEO person. And the OBM is still very well can be doing some tasks and can kind of like get into more of the the drilling down on things, but not stuck in it. Like a VA is kind of really going to be getting into a specific area of someone's business. So it could be like a social media manager. That's a VA. Even though we have the manager title in it, it's sort of like that person really focuses in on someone's social media. Even copywriters can be seen as a VA because they're a virtual assistant and their niche is copywriting. So it can, administration tasks, customer service, that tends to be a VA, whereas the OBM is someone overseeing all of that and perhaps doing a lot of quality assurance on what's actually being produced, I suppose.
So an OBM has a little bit more, I guess, authority and autonomy, perhaps.
Oh, definitely, yeah. So, as I was sort of saying earlier, the OBM sits alongside the business owner, and essentially is someone that would share their vision and want to see that through and be really invested in that vision with the business owner. Whereas a VA kind of, can still be influenced and energized by that vision, but may not have the autonomy to do tasks around that. Whereas the OBM tends to generate ideas based around what the business owner is trying to achieve, I suppose. And it's all about that strategy behind where someone wants to go, what their vision is, where they want to go, and then the OBM kind of works it all out and figures it out, the structure around it.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, if you're online watching this, please stop by and say hi. If you have some questions for Bree, please let her know. It's okay to admit you didn't know what an OBM was, because I didn't know what an IBM was previously. And we have some people who've dropped in to say hi. We have the lovely Liz Walton. Hello, lovely. And we have Casey the Gemini as well. Thank you both for tuning in. So I have a question, which is, for a lot of, founders, they, they tend to be fairly, you use the term visionary, but they also tend to be fairly energetic people. And often the tendency is that they do everything themselves. They know what's in their mind and they just kind of go and do it. How difficult is it for founders to learn to delegate?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a learned skill. I've been in both, that business manager, but also having my own business and knowing, you don't necessarily want to give away too much of, your control perhaps. So it's about it comes from trusting that someone else is able to do what your vision, is, and allowing them to, even potentially alter it slightly, but still know that the vision's going to be followed through. So no one does everything the same way as you. So in order to delegate, you kind of have to relinquish that control and allow someone else to be in your shoes doing something slightly different, in their own version of it. And sometimes they're better. Sometimes you're surprised.
This is actually a real problem for business owners, because I know of one lady who said that she knew she was actually better than her boss in one aspect. I won't say who she is or what she was working in, but she was hired because of her particular skill set. And the product she was working on actually sold better than the products that her boss was designing. Now, you'd think that would make her very popular, but it didn't. I mean, it is kind of hard sometimes when you actually acknowledge that you don't know everything. You're not actually the best of everything. You're actually delegating to someone who's doing it better than you.
Yeah, and it's about wearing all those hats. So you don't need to have all the hats on. There's people that are experts in their field, and that's why people do bring on VAs, because they are experts that can get really deep on something that you're just gonna, as a business owner, be really surface level and not see something come to fruition in all of its glory. You might kind of get an inkling of something working well for you, but if you don't have that expertise, it kind of just is a bit surface and doesn't live up to your dreams potentially.
Well, I guess my research has shown, and this, when I say research, I'm not doing a PhD, but I'd like to read a lot on biographies of successful entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And usually, in order for them to scale, they are the ones who recognize pretty quickly that they need to employ talent, that they can't be doing everything themselves. And a really good example of this is Andrew Carnegie, and this particular story is profiled by Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich. And he recognized very early on, when he wanted to get into steel making, that he didn't actually want to be actively involved. He actually didn't understand that. So he employed this ex-military guy and basically said, over it to you. And this guy would write him a letter once a week saying, I want you to make a decision on, X, Y, Z. And Andrew Carnegie would make the decisions. But for the rest of the time, he was over to his, lead person in command, who made it phenomenally successful. It was, the biggest, enterprise in its day.
Yeah, and that is an example of what a OBM can do for someone's business. That is the point. The point in which you're ready for an OBM is when you're sort of in that stage of scaling, or you are almost about to like pitch over into that point where if if you kept everything the same, then it will just like run the same and you won't kind of like evolve. Whereas if you bring on someone like an OBM, you can then start to really scale things up. And the reason that happens is because the business owner is able to focus on their key things. They're not needed to do all of the daily kind of business running activities that they had to do before. They don't have to be in their emails all the time, or perhaps worrying about how customer service is going on a Facebook group or whatever it might be, because that second in charge is looking after that for them, and they can then start to they have space for ideas to drop in, for opportunities to present themselves, and it gives them it's not necessarily about having a holiday from their business or their work, although having someone under them that can kind of keep working while they do take some time off is always great. It means that they have like the expansion thing, things can expand for them. So and that's where scaling comes out of it. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think you raised a really important question or issue, which is about contingency planning. Like Liz has said that I definitely can't do it all. So lovely Liz Walton has acknowledged she's not Superwoman.
Yeah.
I like to think I'm Superwoman most of the time until something happens. Like recently, pre us going into lockdown, I had a bad cough for a couple of weeks, and I wasn't really able to function quite well. But in the meantime, things had to happen. And, a lot of small business owners in their startup phase do suffer from burnout because there is no contingency. There is no one to take over the reins if they want to have a break or a holiday, or if they get sick or if something happens.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. And that can, really halt progress and like, sales and all those things. Like that's where I think people try and bring in like passive income earners because they think that's how they're going to make money while they take time off. But that's part of it. It's not the only thing. Like you need to keep showing up somehow, and by having someone like an OBM, we can kind of like plan out calendars worth of content so that someone can take time off, but it still looks like everything's moving and all the kind of cogs are moving at the same time.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's very wise. And we have a question from Janie Allen. She said, do I need to work out what exactly I need to outsource first?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that is one of like the key things to do first. So particularly because what you might end up discovering is that all you need is like a VA, and you just need them to look at certain aspects of your business, or you could see that there's like this bigger picture, it covers a lot of different areas, and therefore maybe an OBM is necessary who then looks at hiring VAs for specific tasks for you as well. So like the best thing to do is to get up a list in your phone, in like your notes app, and just start one with the title, I don't have to do, or I don't get to do these things. Like the things I don't enjoy, kind of that title. And anytime you come across a task that you're doing in your day-to-day work that you're like, oh, this is sort of cringy, or I don't enjoy this, or it's not my expertise, put it on that list. And you can come back to that once it started to like flesh out a little bit, and look at, the types of tasks. Perhaps they're very similar. Maybe it's all social media. Okay, so I need maybe someone to look after my social media for me, or I don't enjoy contacting people or following up on consult calls and those sort of like customer service. All right, I need someone that does that. So, you know, like you definitely, best thing to do is to just start that list. And even if you're not 100% sure you're ready just yet, you might find that you can outsource a little bit, or you can automate something from cultivating that list.
Thank you. I think that's a good thing. I mean, so many things you just sort of do on autopilot too. And when it's yourself too, you're not always as strategically organized. You do what you feel like doing, necessarily what you perhaps should do.
Yeah.
But I think some of you may have seen in this group, I now have an intern from ANU. Her name's Yelena. Yelena, if you're here, say hi. And that's actually been a good exercise in terms of working out, you know, some of the things that I have that can be delegated. And often it's simple things like research that I don't have time to do. You know, even it can be like researching competitors or researching best practice, or before I write something, looking at what is out there with other things that have been done in this genre, putting it together, and that then saves me time before I go and do those things from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so good. I think yeah, just having someone in your business, whether it's a VA or an OBM, that can free up your calendar is gonna mean more opportunity for you in some way. So that's so great that you've been able to bring an intern in. That's so cool.
Well, yes, I'm enjoying it, and I'm hoping she's getting out some of it as well. It's unfortunate because she has a particular interest in startups, and I wanted her to co-work at Canberra Innovation Network, and of course we're in lockdown, so lockdown's made things a little bit more difficult. But I guess with an OBN, you don't have to be in person, do you?
No, absolutely. And that's like, I guess, the point, like because they're really designed for online business owners, so people that you know, are doing majority of their business online. Otherwise you might hire just a business manager, you know, like I suppose the benefit of this kind of like structure is you can have someone as an OBM in your business for like on a retainer or on like, you know, contract, you know, hours, or you can have someone kind of like step in and work on projects. And so that sort of thing is really easily done remotely, like regardless. It's like having systems in place to remain in contact with people, with your clients. So perhaps it's like a weekly check-in call, you know, just to go through all the projects. It's very dependent on each individual client for the OBM as to what and how it looks. But yeah, it's just making sure you're being, you know, available for people within parameters, whether it's messaging or like Voxes or Zooms, any of those things. Plus having systems in place like Asana or Trello or whatever version of project management tool that you have, in order to kind of keep on top of things. So yeah, people can work with an OBM that is within your own city, and like, you know, you can kind of meet up with them on the regular if you want to, but there's no need to
outside of lockdown.
If you don't have to. Yeah, exactly. When life returns to as we used to know it. Yeah, but you're not sort of restricted to having like that kind of employee situation, you know, employer-employee situation. You're not kind of like locked into one person for 38 hours, like a week. And, you know, that's just, it makes it more affordable for people as well.
Yeah, because that's one of the dilemmas often with people starting up is at what point, if you've got to start up, at what point are you ready to take on staff? And it can be hard. Like last year and actually earlier this year, I had someone for like 40 hours a month, but I really didn't have that much work. And so it was actually quite difficult. It was difficult to find the right things to sort of generate. So it's a
Yeah.
hard call, isn't it? So, the ability to scale up to the amount you outsource as you outsource it can be really important.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And something that I do, and some other OBMs might do this as well. It's like having kind of like a stepping stone approach to working with someone. So that might start with an initial kind of like consult call, which is free, and you're like just getting to know someone. So it's kind of like an interview, but both ways. And then it might lead into a like one-off kind of service where an audit is provided, or a strategy sessions kind of like takes place, just to get a little bit deeper into the client's business and figure out where things are going to go. And then the next step would be maybe a 3-month like retainer for like 5 hours a week, and just sort of seeing how that's going to pan out. And from there you can kind of scale it up as you need to. And that person could be working on like an individualized project based on the strategy that we've worked out, or it could be across the whole business, and like like looking at those sort of leadership of other VAs, or those sort of elements. It just depends on individual needs, really.
So do you have particular functions or work that you prefer to do as an OBM? Are there things that you go, wow, I really love doing this?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I think like probably the people that know me, one of the obvious things is like the Instagram world. I have courses to support people individually, but I enjoy the strategy behind that. So for me, I'm very strategy focused, but I'm not afraid to kind of like get deeper down and like build out things. So what I mean by that is like systems that we need to implement. So I am a big picture thinker and like a bit of a dreamer, but I still like to get into the nitty gritty of things. So that's sort of how I operate, and that's how I like the flavor I bring to my OBM hat. So project management is one of those things like launching a product or a course or a program or whatever, taking things from like step one. Perhaps that client doesn't have a course platform yet, so working out what course platform is going to work for that individual, what they want, how they want to see things, kind of like how they want their students to walk through the course, through to, and that's just like one section, like the course I guess research of that platform for that person is one element, and then you might go into like a bit more about launching and working out like the process from go to woe, and how that's going to look, and what point is someone going to be contacted, like if they register their interest, what's the email sort of sequence they're going to get, all that sort of stuff. I guess is some of the things that I enjoy doing. So it kind of brings in the strategy, but also systems, and the operational management of your business, organization, whatever it might be. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, because it is quite daunting often when you are preparing to launch things. And there's so much of that imposter syndrome that holds you back when you're doing it yourself.
Yeah, so it's nice to have someone to hold your hand and like perhaps I guess know that there's a bit of a system to it, and without it being too much structure. Like we still want to have the structure, the masculine structure, but allow the feminine flow in amongst all of that. So yeah, having the structure is nice, but let it kind of flow around a little bit as much as we can.
thank you for sharing that. Now, if anyone else has got some questions for Bree as well about what an OBM does, make sure that you sing out about delegation, about how to work with an OBM. This is the opportunity that you have. I mean, do you have any tips for business owners about how they could task an OBM or a VA more effectively to get maximum results?
Yeah, so I think it's like what we were talking about before. We want to look at what areas either the business owner is not enjoying anymore or is being bogged down in too much. So that is probably like the key starting point. We want to look at someone that is kind of so to know that you're ready for an OBM in particular, like a VA you can hire when you're in startup phase, and because you can get someone that's like relatively well priced and it just gives you a little bit of extra time on your plate. Whereas an OBM, it can be a bit of a financial commitment because you want to see continuity out of them. Like it's not while you can work with someone on a project and just do that, you're still going to have a project that might go for 3 months. So being able to financially have the ability to consistently have that client in your business is going to be really important. So you want to be someone that is already kind of, it's the way, how do I want to say this? Like earning a consistent bit income. So they might reach a certain amount every month, or might dip down a little bit or go up a little bit, but like a minimum kind of that feels good. And from that point, we're going to be then able to like work out individually with an OBM and the business owner. They'll be able to work out, what it is that they need specifically for their business to thrive. So it's very much like finding that one person that you connect with. So there's potentially like a whole bunch of people out there in this, in this world that could do this type of work. But I believe the best dynamics are the ones where you have an OBM and a sort of CEO relationship where they are kind of like on the same plane, like they think very similarly, they have the same kind of maybe they lead with their intuition, or like, and so it just depends, like it depends on the individual and the OBM, and making sure that they kind of like match. It's kind of like dating someone, I suppose.
Well, this is very different to a traditional employer-employee relationship, which I think in Australia we're a little bit more open, but certainly when I worked in Taiwan, it was, very traditional hierarchical model where the boss would say, do this, and the employees would sort of sit there, and sometimes you could see them and they'd look a little bit uncomfortable, but they were too scared to say, I think that's a really bad idea. They sort of come up with some sort of excuses, but they wouldn't tell you directly. So this is quite a different kind of model, really.
Yeah, for sure. It's it'd be like an ideal arrangement in the corporate world to have people kind of feeling less and more of a flat structure, not having as much hierarchy, but I guess some areas you need to have that. But in this sort of online space, particularly with the two kind of the owner and the OBM, they do really need to be in each other's back pockets and like almost like besties. To be
almost
honest.
like besties. There you go, an OBM, like almost like besties. So before we finish, we have one final question, and that's from Janie, who has asked, so would you do a discovery call to work out which services you or a VA would benefit your business?
Yeah, for sure. Like I personally call them consult calls rather than discovery calls, sales calls. They're all kind of the same thing. But it's basically, it's that initial, like if we want to use a dating analogy, it's like that initial first date where you're just sort of like sussing someone out, seeing if you vibe, you know, if your energy is like on the same level, and you know, asking that person what their, you know, dreams, their wants, their vision for their life / business might be, and seeing if you're on the same kind of direction, you know, heading in the same direction.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that. So, Bree,
No
make
problem.
sure you leave your contact details in this chat, or the chat on the Facebook
Right.
group, because I know we're connecting via Zoom, so people know how to contact you. And thank you very, very much for being my guest. It has been such an honour. So, for most of you would know that I have now, after a little bit of a gap when I was working full-time for a while, recommenced this series. It's now on Wednesdays, and I have some fabulous guests that are coming up in future weeks, and of course I've had a fabulous guest today as well, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Serena. It's been great. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And this will also be converted to a YouTube clip, which I will share as well, and I really love it when people subscribe to my YouTube channel. It really makes my day, so thank you.
Sounds good.